Hey, welcome to another episode of the DTC Insider podcast. I'm Brian Roisentul, your host, and today I'm going to interview Hamilton Bolduc. He's the founder of Content Machine, one of the fastest growing professional communities. Content Machine matches top pre-vetted talent with leading brands and startups. Before talking to him, let me tell you that this episode is brought to you by BSR Digital. By now, most of us know that customer acquisition costs are going up. There's lack of tracking. Attribution is revenue nuts. And audience sizes are getting smaller and smaller after the iOS 14 update. If that wasn't enough, there are other factors such as the recession and supply chain issues, making it harder than ever to grow your e-commerce brand. And we are going to talk about that with Hamilton in a sec. That's why we need to understand that it's really important to level up the marketing and design a solid strategy, as what used to work doesn't anymore. Here at BSR Digital, we have been helping countless e-commerce brands that wanted to scale their business to the next level through paid ads and email marketing for over a decade. So if you want to learn more about us, feel free to visit us at bsrdigital.com. And you can also email us at hello@bsrdigital.com. Now, as promised, I have Hamilton here with me. Hey, man, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to chat with you.
Yeah, me too, man. So why don't you start by telling the audience more about you, your background, your story?
Yeah. So my story is pretty much I've been a growth marketer for the past 12 years. I started at Major League Baseball, helping them build out MLB Network, and then I hopped into the agency life, as many marketers do. I got the chance to work on some really great projects, start really getting into that startup scene, really around mobile app and e-commerce, and got to work with some fantastic brands. I got to a point during COVID, and I think that's kind of the more interesting part of the story. Where I got the opportunity during that really tough period of time, and I live in Colorado, so winter. I have kids. It was going to be very, very tough to be here in that dead of winter where our kids couldn't go outside. They're very young. They don't understand that they can't go and play with their friends. So we packed up and we moved to Barbados for 6 months, which was just a fantastic experience. During that period of time, given that some of the other things of COVID, like childcare, was tough for so many, myself included. We were at a point where I was really just kind of unable to not be a care provider during the day. So moving into consulting became what I had to do, because I had that flexibility of hours. Now, with that flexibility of hours and the experience I had, happy to kind of hop in as that growth leader for these different organizations, or manage a part of their growth business. So in doing that, I got exposed to, I would say, a bit of the areas of opportunity for these businesses, in areas where they just were not doing anything there, or they were underserving, and a lot of it was around content. So my clients range from leading D2C brands to Fortune 500 companies to brand new startups, and each of them kind of had a hole. The way is the best way to put it. They either weren't producing enough social media, they weren't producing enough ad creatives, they didn't have very good web copy. There was a hole here and there, and for each of them, when we build out that growth strategy, it's okay, well, we're going to do all this, but this glaring thing is going to make it seem like we're not active, we're not current. Our messaging isn't cohesive. They're mismatched. The site says this, but now we do this, or we offer this, but we're saying that we're this. So you had gaps, you had lack of cohesion, and there was just a lack of talent. So it would be hey, who's the person who's going to handle this? And then internally they're we don't have a person. Who do you recommend? So I've been fortunate enough to work with a ton of great folks. I was able to, leverage those relationships and get support for quite a while. But as during that period of time, there was a boom of work. Everybody had plenty. So now you're just you're trying to compete for people's time. And then once you stop competing for people's time, you start going to different platforms. And I don't want to disparage some of these platforms and some of these services, but some of your bigger platforms like Upwork and Fiverr have lots of great talent, but you also have this kind of like middle ground where it could be a bit 50-50 of like, hey, I'm going to get quality work, or the work is not going to be quality. The freelancer is going to be flaky. Again, everybody had so much work. I think everybody just kind of took on as much as humanly possible. And you kind of had, you basically had unreliable and not great ways to go and find talent. Then I kind of just started to think about like, okay, like how do you build a service out like around that? And it became clear, like you have like, different platforms, like, like a marketer hire, then you have platforms like Dribble, and you see like there's different ways that people are approaching like pushing those kind of content talent leaders, like great individual contributors, like up to the forefront. So basically, we said like, hey, like we could probably do this better, offer additional resources as well. And that's where we built Content Machine. So now Content Machine today is basically that marketer hire meets Dribble experience of, we have a community, you can go in and you can post a job to them. They're all pre-vetted. They're all like mid to senior level talent, America's based. So like a ton of our talent in the US through Latin America and South America. So you have a mix of experiences and quality of work, but we do make sure that we maintain a baseline of that higher end quality talent. So whether it's you posting a job or working directly with us, so we help you find that talent through our more managed service. We're aiming to do is to basically not have somebody who is like would be in my shoes. Essentially, I was walking on a beach in Barbados, panicking about where I was going to find talent for a handful of projects. And you don't want to. Who panics at the beach? I did, right? But again, like that was kind of just born out of like a need that just was just hard to fill. So that's what we're up to. Right today we have about, I don't know, we're like getting about to like mid 5 figures in terms of total talent projects. We're bringing on projects daily. We make it a point to match talent, even if it's in the job board, to projects, so that curation helps both the company get their projects done quickly, or find that right full-time hire quickly. And for the talent, we're helping them find their next thing, because it's a tough market. We want to make sure that we are there supporting our talent and getting them onto their next projects.
That's awesome. I love the line about who panics at the beach. I was back in the day. I was working when I have a 3-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, and when they were born, I was at the clinic with my laptop working. So I get you, right? When we don't find the right talent and we are doing things by ourselves, or even worse, we don't have anyone to help us with that work, it doesn't feel good, even if you are in Barbados as you were back then. So now we are living, a strange situation in the world, in the US, but in the whole world, I would say, recession, layoff. So why do you think this helps both brands and talent?
Yeah, so the brand side, it's an interesting conversation that I've had with a few folks this week, even more so, like just since the end of last year. They are getting inundated with applicants through various platforms. So you have a lot of different niche job boards. You have LinkedIn, you have Indeed. You name the platform for jobs. The challenge with those platforms are there isn't really a barrier to entry for most of them. Yeah. Now that means if you're putting your job up on LinkedIn, and you're the hiring manager, potentially, you may have, as the hiring manager, you may have had a recruitment team who could like go and filter through some of these for you. You may have had the budget to work with a with an external recruiter. So we've seen those budgets shrink. We've seen positions in those areas where they've potentially gone away. They've shrunk. So now that hiring manager has the additional pressure of like trying to vet this full list of talent. And if you go onto like any job posting, I use LinkedIn as like the prime example, because I mean they are a leader, in this space. There's hundreds of applicants per role, like within a day, sometimes within a couple of hours. So now they need to go and figure out like who they can talk to out of that list. Chances are you don't have time to go through all of it, because that hiring manager has a day job, like they may be like the head of marketing, they may be the head of like, paid media, or they're a single recruiter and like you have like, 5 jobs to fill for your team. So you're still hiring, but you're also coming out of this world where there was like significant cuts and you're just being asked to do more. And on top of that, you're just getting, inundated with the sea of resumes and the filtering within these platforms. While there's something there, people tend to fib. People will apply when they're like underqualified, or it's like they're like, well, I think I could do this because right now, like, understandable that people are in a moment of panic. It's tough, like if you've been laid off and you have rent or mortgage, you have to pay the bills, right? So you're trying to find a way in. On the talent side, you're getting stuck in that noise. I talk to like plenty of freelancers who are on our platform who are, I as I expect and encourage, are using us and other resources, because right now is a tough time, and you can't in loyalty to a platform just doesn't make sense. Like I would never ask that ever anyways, but at this point it's less so of a realistic conversation that you could ever have. So what ends up happening is a lot of like great talent. And I'm talking like I have a really amazing writer who's written for TechCrunch, who's written for stuff that's been in like the New York Times, who can't even get an interview because they're going in to like platforms like LinkedIn as a part of what they're doing, for those roles, and they're just like stuck in this middle ground. So what we're attempting to do and how we address that is just like, hey, listen, like we're gonna cut out that flow of like anybody and everybody, in making it like this, like, here are highly qualified people. If you're looking for somebody from the mid-level to senior level, that is a content strategist, that is a social media expert, that does design, writes, does stuff in like the influencer space. Hey, like this is a good place to come, because you're going to have a smaller list of people that are going to apply, right? Like, I mean, like you could still get, a significant number of applications. It's just like we just don't have this. We're not the size of some of these bigger platforms, and the talent is just curated. We're just never going to be the size, because we want to have curation around who we're bringing to you. So you're not just getting everybody and anybody. You can kind of pick with confidence. So instead of like going and like having the 200, you basically have 20. And of that 20, we're sending you 3 that are very highly qualified. So that just makes your like that project for you as the hiring manager easier. And then as the talent, it just means that you're not going to have to like cut through like hundreds of thousands of people who may apply for a role. And I've seen that on some job boards. I've seen 50,000 applicants, 100,000 applicants. What do you like? Where do you get started on either side of that?
Yeah, we used to use LinkedIn a lot to post jobs, and it's exactly what you said before. There are a lot of applicants, most of them unqualified. So yeah, it's not about the quantity; it's about the quality, and it's something that it's true every time. I mean, I prefer getting less applicants, but knowing that all of them or most of them are going to be qualified. In the end, it's the same. Receiving 200 resumes in one day, 90% unqualified, probably that's not what we're looking for anyway. So I want to talk e-commerce now. I know that e-commerce brands, as any other business, are going through this phase, recession. Some of them are seeing an uptick in sales. Some others are struggling with getting sales. So there's mix, right? But all of them, what they have in common is that they need to level up the marketing. They need more content. So which roles do you suggest that they hire to improve that?
Yeah, the conversation that we've had with a few brands, we actually have a few e-commerce brands who've kind of come to us and said, help us from the beginning. We really focus on three key roles. We focus on that UGC creator, because the UGC creator can also kind of hop in and help you on the social media side, right? Because like they're just doing social media as a part of their work, and they have it pretty well in their skill set. So that combo is pretty good, especially if you don't have a social media person, or if you were using an agency and have just decided to cut that. You can typically find that combo to kind of give you produce you high quality organic content that you can then, based upon what you're seeing on performance there, use that to maybe turn those into paid media. The next two are really the designer and writer. You need to have some consistent design resources, especially like if you're talking about like the paid media world. It's really all about creative testing. So if you have like that trio, and like this is, again, we have a handful of companies that have this trio with us. You're able to solve like your email, your SMS with the writer, your blog content with the writer. So like you're just kind of taking care of that side of the world. And then you have the designer who can do both your paid ads and then some of your social content, and then maybe some stuff for the site. And then having that UGC specialist, like that is definitely another like very key one, because if they can take care of like giving you assets that you can kind of use kind of across the board, that's the right place to be. Now, I in this setup, what I have typically suggested, and again, this is me kind of like, putting my growth hat on in this conversation with these e-commerce brands. It's always been like, you have the vision, quarterback it, right? For larger companies, like we add in a content strategist, but that's a whole other thing. But really specifically, like what it's like focused on is like the best coverage across all the assets in a fractional way, where maybe you had like a team before. We have a client in the crypto fintech space where the marketing team went away in their round of layoffs, right? So like they basically kind of they needed that structure, and it became fractional. So we're seeing a bit more of like, hey, like we're gonna do fractional hires to replace this. And my point always to them is create the depth of assets that you need. So if you have any of those resources internally, I would say then you're basically trying to fill those three roles, and that should like get you through the storm, right? And more, right? Because I do like, as you're seeing many many like e-commerce experts kind of talking a bit about the value of like UGC creative, and the value of creative testing, and how paid media is more of like a creative driven world versus like a media and analysis, like data driven expertise. Those things are still there, but like it's you like we've seen that shift, and that's been happening for quite a while.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, we have been talking about that lately in the podcast. We discussed that with John Loomer as well, the OG on Facebook ads as well. And we put together a webinar for an e-commerce community a few weeks ago, and it was all about that. And I think I even posted that on LinkedIn as well. It was about like exactly what you said before. It was all about the laser targeted audiences and average ads, because I mean, if you have a full theater with your targeted audience, you just need to say, hey, this is the message. And even if it's not dialed in, even if it's not really produced, let's say, or on point, you have the right eyeballs in front of you. But now things have changed, and the audience is not as targeted as before. It's like, let's say, broader, and the message should be the filter in this case, right? That's what we see working. At least we need to level up the marketing, the creatives, videos, UGC, everything you said. That's exactly what everyone should be doing, at least testing if that works for them. So in this case, do you have, I mean, wearing, as you said, your growth hacks, your growth hat, do you have any suggestions for, ways of testing creatives nowadays?
Yeah. For me, it's more, it's less iterative. I think it's more big concept. What you do is like when you find that big concept, then you get like super iterative. But like the way of the past of like, hey, like I'm gonna build this ad out and I'm gonna do like, these different versions before you've actually tested whether or not the concept works, I think is a pretty big one. In terms of in terms of like copy, that always to me is like always kind of like, does it work, does it not work? I think copy like within like the creative itself works, but like those copy fields, like if it's a discount, it catches an eye, but like that's kind of my 2 cents there. But when it comes to creative testing, like you have to have like the bench of like creative, like you need to have those on, like those assets on deck to consistently keep testing and keep pushing out different messaging, especially like if you have a small audience that you're targeting, your frequency on these ads, like it can't run too high. You want it to be you want to basically almost like think about it, and I've done this a little bit in B2B, and I brought it into B2C with some pretty good results. Is like, think about it as like a multi-touch process, and it doesn't need to be like a, hey, this is who we are, this is a little bit more about us, and then this is what we want you to do. So like, you don't need to go through like a full traditional way of that, but I think like talking about like different value props kind of does that well. If there is a need for an intro, your new brand, like, yeah, sure, go do something similar to that. Go do some kind of something explainer that helps. But I think for the most part, talking about your value props in a way and communicating that effectively in a way that like people can like understand, it's like, then the entry point doesn't really matter. But I think like thinking about like the multi-touch approach and how that ultimately leads to that conversion, whatever your conversion may be, I think it's just the right way. It's the right way to go about it. Like, because if it's the same message over and over again, like, sure, that could work, but I only think that works for like certain brands. I think that you need to kind of unpack a bit more of who you are. And I think that UGC, we're talking about a specific like kind of content, they do that well, right? Like they literally unpack boxes of stuff, like, and like and those are wildly successful. But like,
Yeah.
you want to create connection, and you want people to you want that customer to understand the depth. I think that those are really important.
Yeah. With EGZ, I think that the most important thing is the implicit effect, which is that they are, let's say, real customers, hopefully, or sometimes actors, right? Um, Showing that they are happy with the product they received. So it's social proof, 100%, right? So
Yeah.
that's like the power of showing why you're different and that real customers bought before and you're not the first, yada, yada. So do you have anything to say on the organic side of things? Like, do you know how often, or do you have suggestions on how often a brand should post these days? If they should be posting on the Instagram feed, or if they should be doing reels only, if they should be leveraging TikTok, of course, depending on the industry. But what do you think?
I mean, right now you want to go wherever your audience is, right? Like I think like first and foremost, right? Like you figure out what platform you potentially have the best reach, and that fits your brand, right? So my 2 cents are you post as much as you can, so long as the value of the post is there, right? So that's, again, I think that's like a very high level generic way, like what does that actually turn into within like a marketing calendar? Ideally you're posting daily, right? Like I think you should aspire to do your post daily at least. The organic content allows you to have things that are linear, right? So you can do things that operate in that linear aspect. Not everybody starts at your beginning, but you can do things to kind of attempt to meet people at their beginning, and you can react to like when people are just engaging with you. Like, what are those big moments that like somebody could come in, right? Like is that like a big, is it holiday? Like, is your product designed around a specific time of year? Like, are you doing any PR pushes? You want to think about how to arrange your organic social around that. Like the people will start to kind of see your ads, like at least they'll recognize them more if they're within your target demo, because they've seen some potential, like some PR, maybe some more of like your earned media. So like when they see those things, like you want to make sure that you look alive, you're you have great messaging, and you want to try to meet them where they are, right? Like that to me is a very important one. And I've worked with a few different brands that didn't really kind of like lean on that. And again, like, from like a resourcing standpoint, when you're doing, yes, you can have a PR agency, but there's always a ton of work internally to make sure like you get that turned around. Like that agency is not just working, on their own, completely taking things off your plate. They need things from you, and that's completely fine, and that makes sense because that helps push everything along further. But I think that those are kind of the moments, like, so like organic social, this needs to be live at all times, and then you just need to recognize when those big moments are going to potentially happen to bring you greater viewership, like more eyeballs, like those impressions are there, so you can then convert them into followers, and just continue to give them relevant messaging there. So you pair that with your paid media, and you have a good opportunity to build a bond with that customer.
Percent, I agree. So we've been discussing that, like we've been discussing for a few minutes about paid ads and how the industry has changed ever since the iOS 13 version of the iOS 13 was introduced in, I think it was April 2021, but then a lot of things happened, and in, I think it was December, Chat GPT was introduced to the market, creating a lot of controversial opinions, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, as they say, both for brands and for the creators. Let's say in this case, it could be copywriters, it could be strategies, it could be for those doing the work, right? For the brands. So what's your take on that? Have you used it?
Yes. I really enjoy using ChatGPT. I use it for, and I think that we are starting to kind of come out of the craze where people understand that it should be used for your basic, like your very basic content, like your research-based content. It is not a marketing machine. Now, when the craze started, people were looking at it as, hey, this is now my potentially a solve for some of my marketing needs. Yeah, I mean, like, for some of like your blog content, maybe, but like it's, again, it doesn't have and I've talked with a few people about this. It doesn't have the flair or life that a true like marketing copywriter can give something. It doesn't have the position in the thought process to kind of think outside of a box. Like it's in a box, right? Of sorts. So it's something that like people should look to use, like the best analogy that I've heard, and I'm sure everybody's heard this at this point, is that like it's the calculator, right? To math, like how the calculator was to math. Like this is what Chat GPT should be to writers. And I agree, right? Like, so like it can kind of help with a couple of things, but really when you think about like where our paid media is going to, when in that UGC content, people want authentic experiences. Chat GPT, for all of its good value, it's not an authentic experience. So from like a marketing perspective, it has a place, but its place is not at the heart of what you're doing. It's additional. It can help you maybe move faster. And if you in as long as you're just like doing that right thing, then like you're in a better spot, right? Like some people will become reliant on it, and it may just be the right thing for some people. I just think for a majority of businesses, especially when we talk about e-commerce brands, it's gonna be really, really hard to make Chat GPT your main output of compelling content.
I agree. I mean, for now, we don't know what it's going to be capable of in the near future or in a few years from now. But for now, for example, in the agency, we are using it for getting off the blank page. As your brainstorming buddy, it's like, hey, I have these rough ideas, and we started to learn, and we are still, of course, as I think everyone else, learning how to use it properly, between quotes properly. I don't know if there's a proper way, but in a better way, like, I don't know, act as a copywriter or as a certain copywriter using this copywriting formula. And please use, I don't know, this as a reference and giving them the right input. I think we all as human beings realized with this more than ever that we don't know how to ask questions properly, right? And this is forcing us, if we want to get the best results possible, to ask the right questions to get the outcome that we're looking for. Still forgetting off the blank page and brainstorming ideas and iterating, but then saying, hey, if I'm going to copy paste this as my final output, as you said, probably we're not there yet. I don't know if you're going to be there in the future. I have heard, as I'm sure many of those of you guys listening, many examples of future use case scenarios. I don't know, the master salesperson, who consumes virtually, let's say, thousands of hours of content in milliseconds or nanoseconds or whatever, and phone calls, and can give you a super on point sales script or handle sales calls. I don't know, but we are not there yet, right? So now, what do you think? Are you guys using it or suggesting your the creators, let's say the social strategies, etc., to use it, or you don't see that happening?
So I'm actively pushing our talent to understand it and to make use of it as it makes sense. There's like in terms of like how we when we match our talent to like that client, like that's a conversation that they should have, right? Like they should have the conversation of like, okay, do we want to pull AI into this to some extent? And if the answer is yes, great. If that writer or that we'll focus on right. If that writer decides that they want to use it to spark an idea, great. The conversation just needs to be transparent, and like that's where that level of transparency that's needed is going to be a thing. Do I expect that people are going to overindulge? 100%. It's just it's human nature, right? So does that what does that mean for like that piece of content? I mean, at the end of the day, like it needs to be approved. I mean, so like if the brand likes it, then hey, use it. My belief is that like that's where like we kind of talk about like those resources and like how you could kind of build a team. That person who's like leading like either content or marketing or the company, as they sit as that point person, they have to make those decisions on what's right for their brand. and that's ultimately what it comes down to. So it's a decision that they need to make, and honestly, brands are making that right now. You know, we're still seeing, I would say, the lagging effect of AI coming in and being interesting to folks, and people saying, maybe I don't need to spend, you know, $5K a month on writers. I'm going to try this for a bit. That's fine, and they may find a middle ground that works, right? And I mean, like we're in a moment of a lot of things swirling, right? There's like you have your economic impacts, you have your technology impacts or upgrades, you know, however you may see it. But we're in a period of time where I think people are trying to figure out like what they do next.
Yeah, 100%. So we don't only learn from, you know, other from the AI, in this case from ChatGPT, or from the clients we have. We also learn from other colleagues in the space that post some really interesting content or throw some interesting webinars or workshops. So do you follow anyone in this space that you would like to give them a shout out to and recommend to the audience to follow?
Yeah. So there's a couple there. I mean, there's like so many good follows. Tim Keene, who was running Loop Club. I believe they were just recently purchased, and the name of the company is slipping my mind right now. There you go. I think that he's doing a great job. I was fortunate enough to meet him at the beginning of his journey when he just started Loop Club, and meteoric rise. I think he offers a lot of great insights. He's seeing a lot of things. He wrote something recently about beauty brands. And in really what struck me, the insights were fantastic. What struck me is the volume of things he's seeing. And I think for like right now, when we're kind of talking about all these changes, people who are seeing or able to aggregate things that they're seeing within verticals, industries, what have you, those are interesting because I think that people are all kind of looking for like that directional of like where things are going. And then another favorite of mine, and a friend of mine, Adam Lovallo, who ran Thesis that was acquired by Barrington, and he's also kind of just been in and around the mobile space as well. Definitely similar to my background. He's not as I would say he doesn't publish as much as Tim, but when he does publish, it's really meaningful, thoughtful, and I think he does a great job of like aggregating information. So I really do enjoy people who like can like put out things that show trends and back it up with data, and hands-on experience. So those two are two of my favorite follows.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to thank you for your time and for being on the show. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think you delivered a lot of value to the audience. So I hope you had fun as well. And please, before you go, why don't you tell the audience where they can go to learn more about you and Content Machine?
Yeah, so follow me on LinkedIn. I'm going to be putting out a ton of like really great content insights as we've kind of are coming out of like this grand period of uncertainty. And then go to the website contentmachine.biz. There, if you're looking for work as a content creator yourself, go ahead and sign up. We're happy to have you, and we'll work with you to kind of help you find your next thing. And if you're a business in need of content support, go ahead and go and fill out that form. We'll go ahead and get you set up, either with a job posting or matching you directly to talent. But really, like, again, our goal here is to kind of help everybody move a bit quicker.
That's awesome. Hamilton, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye.